Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at the fact that Mercury is about to sextile Jupiter as we have a first quarter moon and as the sun is about to square Neptune. It's a pretty fast dynamic. We've spent a lot of this week talking about Venus and Pluto. We're going to shift our attention today to this dynamic, which is also coming through over the weekend. So I apologize in advance. I have a sore throat and a cold. We are passing things around here this fall. There's been like 3 bouts of getting sick here. So if I sound a little bit like a frog, my apologies. So that's what we're going to look at today and give you guys some sense of what's coming over the weekend. Before I do that, I want to remind you that we have 22 days left to go in the Kickstarter. There's just a little over 3 weeks left. And right now we are at 604 backers, with our total goal being 1,367, which is one more than last year. So let's just see if we can do a little bit better than we did last year with 22 days left to go. So if you love this channel, if you like it, if you subscribe, if you turn to this channel for daily guidance when it comes to astrology and yoga and spirituality, then I hope you'll consider pitching in and supporting us. You can find the link to the Kickstarter in the comments section of this post, as well as the description of the video. When you get to the Kickstarter page, you can pick up the Astrology of 2022. Got lots of different videos, one on mantra meditation, one on creating a spiritual practice, one on karma and the nodes of the moon from the traditional perspective. There's a year ahead horoscope reading you could pick up for your sun or rising sign, dives into all the major astrology of the year ahead for your sun or rising sign. There's videos on the mystical 7 planets and the realm of the outer planets. There's also an astrology for total beginners video. This is a perfect gift to give to someone who's in your life who says, why are you into astrology? I don't really get it. This is perfect for that kind of person who just totally brand new to astrology, wants an overview of what it is, where it comes from, how it works, what people who are into astrology generally believe. There's some horary readings left as well. And then there's also the best deal, which is 50% off all of my online classes, and the savings goes up if you bundle them together as well. So if you pledge $900, you can take any of my courses in 2022 or beyond. You can use them as a credit, use them anytime the classes are offered. The next 2 programs are June and November of 2022 for my 1-year Hellenistic astrology program. You can bundle and take year 1 and year 2, and the savings goes up even more. Well, these are like $400 cheaper than even the early bird rate. So best time of year to save on those. So at any rate, I thank you so much for your support. If you aren't able to support, you can always send us prayers, like, subscribe, click on the notification bell, share the videos somewhere, help our channel grow and stay healthy. When you donate, you're supporting me, my family, my staff. You're supporting a lot of people who put a lot of work into making sure that this happens every single day. And I show up here even when I'm sick. That's the thing for me. Or if I know I'm going to be out, I record videos in advance. There's very few times you won't find me here Monday through Fridays offering you guys content year round. So I really appreciate your support, and thank you for letting me talk to you guys about this as the year closes down. All right, so we're going to take a look at the big astrology coming in over the weekend. Now we know Venus and Pluto are getting together. That's the big transit we talked about this week. I recommend going back and listening to those videos if you haven't yet, so you have some sense of what's coming. You're going to see that there's a couple of things perfecting. Here today we have the moon and the sun as a first quarter moon. We have the sun going into a square with Neptune. We also have Mercury in Sagittarius, Jupiter's sign, going into a sextile with Jupiter. So that is a lot of Jupiterian energy. You've got Sagittarius and Pisces, both Jupiter's domiciles. Mercury in Jupiter's sign, configured to Jupiter by a sextile. That's harmonious. The sun is pushing toward that same thing. It's a first quarter moon in Jupiter's signs, and the moon is coming into a square with, or the sun is coming into a square with Neptune as well. So what does all of that mean? Well, the common denominator here is Jupiter. What does Jupiter want to do? Generally speaking, Jupiter is going to represent the impulse in human society to form institutions, that provide us with greater sense of meaning and unity or wholeness. For example, the legal system or the organization of a government, religions, institutes of learning. So anything that provides us with a sense of societal, moral cohesion, metaphysical, philosophical, ethical cohesion, the sense that we live in a unified, meaningful whole, that is all Jupiter in general. Now, when you see a first quarter moon coming in and there's two different Jupiter ruled signs, and Jupiter's also in Aquarius right now, picking up some energy from the sun and Mercury. Remember that squares, the first quarter moon is a square, are of the nature of Mars. And the squares between these two Jupiter ruled sides can then thus imply competition. Competition over what? Over the law. They can point toward legal debacles, or they can point toward conflicts about ideology, political, religious beliefs, or morality. They can speak to challenging, looking for unity, but being challenged to find it. So it would not be a surprise, especially with Venus conjoined with Pluto over the weekend, if our relationships were challenged by different or differing views on what constitutes the good for the greatest number of people, the good in a situation, the right choice or decision, the right way to manage money. Whatever the case might be, you might have conflicting ideals this weekend. And the overarching goal is to find unity and common ground, but there's differences. How do we handle that? Well, this morning when I was meditating on this transit, all this collection of transits, I should say, I decided to cast the I Ching. And I was really fascinated by the result. The I Ching came back with hexagram number 13, which is usually in English translated as fellowship. Fellowship. So in the hexagram, you have the image of the top trigram of the hexagram. There's 6 numbered lines, and they all are either yin or yang. And the top trigram, the top 3 lines, forms the image of heaven, and the bottom 3 lines forms the image of the sun. So you have heaven over the sun. And in this image, in the bottom trigram in particular, there's 2 solid lines, yang lines, and 1 yin line in the center. And the rest, the top 3 lines are all yang as well. So there's literally only 1 yin line and otherwise 5 yang lines in the hexagram. And so what does this speak to? It speaks to the oddball. It speaks to the one thing or person or group that is different, perhaps a minority. And this hexagram speaks, for example, about what do you do with a neighboring tribe that has very different customs than your own? Do you approach them, in a sort of colonialist mindset? Let's invade, take over, and make them assimilate to our way of doing things? Or is there some other way? Do you have an open war with them to just see who will win and whose culture or way of life will be dominant? Do you coexist peacefully, and if so, how? So this hexagram really looks at but this is all just a metaphor, right, for the idea that something maybe within ourselves is different than every other part of ourselves. For example, maybe there's a part of it's like maybe you're a straight-laced businessman by day, but you enjoy belly dancing by night or something like that. Maybe there's a part, like for me, like I'm a sort of like a monk, but then I have definitely like a sports fetish, right? So I just love sports. And there's just parts of us that we have to accommodate that aren't really the same, or that don't always work in harmony, or sometimes even conflict with other parts of ourselves. So it can be an internal or personal struggle. Or we can talk about marriages, or we can talk about work relationships and a workplace. When there is someone or something that stands out and is different or apart, it's either something that creates conflict, or that difference becomes the source of some creativity that has to be tapped into in order to create fellowship, unity. So this is a very Jupiterian hexagram. So how do you create harmony with the other, those who are different from you, those who don't look like you, or those who have different values or beliefs than yourself? Is there some way that you can find a common cause, a common theme that brings you together and sets aside the differences? That is something to consider this weekend as we look at Venus Pluto, as we look at a competing square between two different Jupiter ruled signs, and a lot of emphasis on Jupiter between Mercury and Jupiter's sextile, which looks Mercury as an agent of chaos and negotiation, and Jupiter as an agent of unity. The two coming together in a sextile with reception suggests we're trying to work something out. We're trying to come to some kind of agreement. We're trying to find place for that one thing that's different or that stands out or that has a hard time fitting in, or that could even be the source of conflict. So the message of this hexagram, so perennial, so simple, so cliche, don't get into a conflict with that which is different, but work on connections, refining each other as we go to become more tolerant, peaceful, to focus on how we can coexist, and to focus on what we have in common, what we share in common. So the fourth line of this hexagram was changing. And that line reads something like this: if you try to fight your way to success by overcoming or dominating that thing that's different, beating it into shape or trying to make it conform or whatever, the likelihood is that you'll fail. But because you failed, because you realize, oh, this thing can't, this one odd thing that doesn't quite fit in can't be like tamped down, eliminated, beat down, forced to conform, then instead you'll realize in your failure that you need a new strategy. So it'll have been positive that you failed, because through the failure of might makes right, or trying to pound something into conformity, through the failure of that process or that approach, you will realize that the only thing left to do is to find a way of assimilating, seeking harmony, looking for common causes, and trying to give room or space for that thing that is different, that thing that is doesn't feel compatible. I look at this square, it's like a microcosm, really, of a lot of what we've been through since the nodes have been in Sagittarius and Gemini. A lot of it has been about conflicting beliefs about what is good or right or appropriate legally, or in terms of how to handle the coronavirus or whatever else. There's a lot of conflicting ideals out there. There's, and it seems like a lot of the way that the headlines are framed, I don't watch the news very much any longer, but a lot of the way the headlines are framed is whatever happens, it's either a drop in the red bucket or the blue bucket. One team wins, but the other team loses. And that's the way a lot of things are spun. And this hexagram really says that that will get you nowhere in the long run. That there are differences, and differences are key. But this hexagram in particular says that unless you can't get to the truly great accomplishments in life and realize the truly great ideals of human society, the ideal of a balanced and wise inner state of consciousness for the individual, you can't get to any of those places unless you learn how to do something other than try to force differences, whatever those differences are, unless you try to force or pound them into submission, conform, it doesn't work. So I think this is interesting because Jupiter is also about to change signs out of a Saturn ruled sign into its own sign, a water sign. And I wonder if we aren't at the end of our ropes when it comes to the approaches that we have taken to trying to create unity or harmony with things that we don't like or that don't seem to get along. Well, this frustrated intolerance toward whoever or whatever we don't like. This feeling of someone not doing something in the way that they should. These kinds of issues, you can see them as a little microcosm of the next couple of days. Venus crossing Pluto, really pulling up things from deep within our relationships, conflicting ideals. How do you create fellowship and unity despite the fact that there will always be some difference, some other, something that doesn't fit in or that doesn't conform to your expectations? There will always be, in the lingo of the ancient I Ching, there will always be a neighboring tribe that looks different, acts different, has different religious customs, different ways of doing life and government. There will always be a different system, a different party. There will always be a different group, a different faction within ourselves as well as around us. And the question, as far as I can see it, with this little first quarter moon moment over the weekend, is that we're going to get, there's an opportunity perhaps to seek out fellowship, to seek out some form of unity. The sun squaring Neptune, for example, is often about, here's a sense of personal ambition, sun. Here's the force of the collective in Neptune. So how does the individual and the needs or differences between the individual and collectives fit together? There's some conflict perhaps in their square, both Jupiter ruled signs. What are my views as an individual? What is my code as an individual? How does it fit in or contrast with larger collectives? So finding ourselves in the right place with the right people, with the right motivations, these are the kinds of things I could also see as really important over the weekend. Okay, so that's about all I have to say about that today, especially since I'm nursing a sore throat here. So I'm gonna wrap up now. But I would love to hear your stories about Venus Pluto in particular. Use the hashtag grabbed and tell us what's been going on with Venus's conjunction with Pluto, which is coming in today and tomorrow. The rest of these aspects come in between now and Sunday. Remember, try not to force a square peg into a round hole. There's something to be said about learning to adapt and change and allowing for difference, allowing for different ways and modes of being or living or seeing things. And I think that that's a good opportunity for us as Venus hits Pluto too, because the need to change, adapt, evolve in relationships, or potentially, see the ship go down in flames, is there with Venus Pluto too. So this is some pretty good advice from the I Ching today. Love to hear your stories about it if you feel like sharing. And otherwise, don't forget to pitch into the Kickstarter. We are at 604 backers, 22 days left to go, trying to get to 1,367. Still need a bunch of people out there who watch this channel regularly to step up, pitch in, help out if you can. Really appreciate it. And maybe we'll see some of you in class too, picking up some of that discounted tuition. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. Bye.